The Zombie Autopsies. Secret Notebooks from the Apocalypse. By Stephen C. Schlozman, M.D. Illustrations by Andrea Sparacio. Narrated by Stephen Hoye and Peter Berkrot, with Emily Durante. Copyright 2011 by Stephen C. Schlozman, M.D. This unabridged audiobook is published by arrangement with Grand Central Publishing, a division of Hachette Book Group, Incorporated, and was produced in the year 2012 by Tantor Media, Incorporated, which holds the copyright thereto. Publisher's note: this audiobook is packaged with bonus material, which has been included on each audio and MP3 CD. If you downloaded this audiobook in a digital format, please refer to www.tantor.com, keyword Zombie Autopsies. Click on PDF Extra 1, then enter the access code Walking Dead. United Nations Outpost. Highly Confidential Memo, 25 January 2013. The enclosed documents are highly classified. They are exact replicas of the recently recovered handwritten notes of Dr. Stanley Blum, the last scientist sent to the United Nations Sanctuary for the study of ANSD and zombie biology. After careful examination, World Health Organization and United Nations officials have reason to believe that these writings may contain groundbreaking data regarding the nature of the ANSD pathogen. Furthermore, it is possible that this information represents both a key to a viable cure, as well as the most definitive evidence to date that the ANSD virus was artificially manufactured, human-made, and therefore did not occur naturally. The importance of these potential conclusions cannot be overstated. 1/3 of humanity has perished from the plague. 2.3 billion people have died, and countless more are quickly moving toward the final stages of disease. There is reason to believe that in a short time nearly everyone on Earth will be infected. The virus continues to spread exponentially, and all attempts at a vaccine or a cure have failed. Scientific and industrial infrastructure is rapidly faltering. Early attempts at controlling the spread of disease via nuclear and non-nuclear incineration have left the planet in an ecologically fragile state. Current computer models suggest that civilization can only survive for approximately another decade before we face total destruction. These are indeed dire times. The information in this journal may very well represent our last hope. In addition to new material, the following documents contain background information intended to brief the 14 new representatives who have recently arrived at the UN compound. The WHO and the UN regret the contamination that necessitated the removal of those with stage 4 infection in last month's breach. Precautions have been taken to prevent further infectious incidents. Early identification protocols remain in effect. Background. Less than 3 years ago, the idea that a zombie plague would threaten all of humanity was preposterous. Indeed, the very nature of this claim prevented swift and decisive action from the world community. Nevertheless, zombie is arguably the most recognizable term for those who have been infected with ANSD and have reached the 4th stage of the disease. Ataxic neurodegenerative satiety deficiency syndrome, ANSD, the internationally accepted diagnostic term for what is more commonly referred to as zombieism, continues to spread unabated. While some islands remain disease-free, ANSD is otherwise present on every major landmass. Most of the governed world is under martial law. The signs and symptoms of the disease are universally known, but the disease itself appears both indestructible and untreatable. In July 2012, the United Nations established a study site on the island of Basasta, India, in the Indian Ocean. The official charter for this site called for a laboratory setting where the world community could focus its efforts on the scientific study of ANSD, including anatomic explorations of zombies themselves, as well as molecular investigations of the presumed contagion. This site is formally known as the United Nations Sanctuary and Study Site, UNSAS, but is more commonly referred to at the UN bunkers as the Crypt. Those who volunteer to participate in the work on the island understand that a return to the bunkers is not permitted, and scientists started referring to the site as the Crypt in an effort to acknowledge the blunt reality of their important and difficult tasks. On 11 November 2012, the UN received its last message from the Crypt. The message was a radio transmission, and as with most digital communications, the content was badly garbled due to nuclear interference. It is important to note that we had not received any email contact from the island for some time, and the voice message was received over a little-used commercial satellite frequency. Voice analysis has suggested with reasonable certainty that the communication was from Dr. Blanca Gutierrez, who was at that time the resident microbiologist on the island. After significant digital analysis, the message reads as follows: Status: Junt. Hype: New. Diff: Virus. Vaccine: Bull. An international group of scientists, policymakers, epidemiologists, and ethicists has theorized that Gutierrez had new information regarding a viable vaccine. It is unclear whether hype refers to hyper, a possible acceleration of disease progression, or more likely to the hypothalamus, a region of the brain oddly not affected by ANSD infection. The bull suffix at the end is consistent with words such as possible, viable, or conversely impossible. We are fairly certain that junt is most consistent with the word urgent. No further communications were received, and attempts to communicate with the island were unsuccessful. At that time, UN records show that Gutierrez's team included Dr. James Pittman, a Canadian anatomist and medical illustrator, Dr. Anita Gupta, a leading virologist from Delhi, as well as 3 military attachés. There were also an unspecified number of infected humanoids in the holding facility. On 14 November 2012, a team of 3 individuals was sent to investigate the crypt in an attempt to regain contact with Gutierrez and her colleagues. Dr. Sarah Johnson, a Scottish neurobiologist and expert in viral brain infections, Dr. Jose Martinez, the chief forensic pathologist for the former New York City, and Dr. Stanley Blum, a neurodevelopmental biologist with the United States Centers for Disease Control, CDC, were selected for the mission. While Drs. Martinez and Johnson were chosen for their scientific expertise, Blum's orders were to record the findings of the team and to ensure that these findings were reviewed by scientists in the international ANSD research community. Many will recall that Dr. Blum was central in the research and diplomatic endeavors resulting in the seminal paper on ANSD published in August 2011. Prior to the completion of that manuscript, there was ongoing debate in the international community about the extent to which scientists understood or were prepared for the pandemic. Blum's diplomatic efforts brought together an international team of ANSD experts, succinctly described the history of the outbreak, and made clear the need for urgent attention to the rapidly developing crisis. Drs. Johnson, Martinez, and Blum set out in separate automated transport planes programmed to bypass the security apparatus at the UNSAS. Unfortunately, only Dr. Blum arrived safely on the island. After an automated transmission from Dr. Blum signaling his arrival, communication with the island was lost altogether. At that time, ANSD experts felt the risk of further exploration of the crypt was too great. Researchers on the island were genetically manipulating the virus, and ANSD experts were consequently reluctant to potentially release an even more dangerous form of the contagion from the sterile confines of the study site. However, as already noted, world conditions continued to rapidly deteriorate. The decision was therefore made to pursue excavations of the crypt, with the primary goal of understanding the final transmission from Gutierrez. After extensive precautions, the study site was thoroughly investigated for 7 days, 8 to 15 January 2013. 3 of the 7 surveyors have since died from ANSD, and the remaining 4 have all shown signs of progressive infection. We are grateful for the courage and sacrifice made by those who conducted the surveillance. Surveyor 3, Captain Amy McBride of the elite British Special Boat Service, was among the first to succumb to stage 4 disease while on the island. As protocol dictated, she was fatally shot by members of the surveillance team. Although she had collected only limited data onto her hard drive, the team failed to search her personal belongings, presumably in their efforts to quickly sterilize the body for transportation back to the UN base. She was frozen in liquid nitrogen and sealed in an automated marine transport unit. Navigational malfunctions prevented the remains of Captain McBride from arriving at the docking station until last week. Upon arrival, the handwritten laboratory notes of Dr. Stanley Blum were discovered in her backpack. Dr. Blum's writings are presented here in preparation for tomorrow's meeting. His journal, as noted, is handwritten, and he and Dr. Pittman made extensive sketches and diagrams to document their work. Publisher's note: see bonus material for Dr. Pittman's sketches. The final pages of his notebook are frustratingly unclear, and physicians here speculate that he was traumatized as well as suffering from the cognitive effects of the treatments used to slow progression of ANSD toward zombieism. The standard of care for treatment of ANSD infection remains an artificially induced increase in human pH. This technique was first described by Blanca Gutierrez and has been referred to as the Gutierrez Protocol. Unfortunately, the effects of these measures create a number of significant neurological side effects that ironically mimic the cognitive decline consistent with full zombie status. Thus, it is unclear why Blum's cognitive state appears to decline throughout his notebook. He was either suffering from the effects of the Gutierrez Protocol or was in fact slowly moving toward zombie status. Nevertheless, it is possible that careful examination of this material will yield crucial answers. Most important, when Gutierrez left for the crypt, she was already pursuing a theory that ANSD spread when it combined with still unidentified additional infectious agents. If those agents could be detected, then there was a much greater likelihood of creating a viable cure. She therefore intended to pursue her theory by examination of infected humanoids while looking for additional pathogens. These investigations had not yet been pursued by scientists at the crypt or anywhere else, and Gutierrez insisted that she go herself. She felt strongly that investigations would have to be thorough and that findings from previous autopsies would need to be selectively discarded. Her expertise in molecular biology, microbiology, and vaccine development made her especially well suited for the position, though her commitment also meant that she would expire on the island. Thus her efforts were both heroic and potentially scientifically groundbreaking. She asked that Dr. Anita Gupta join her as a co-investigator in this project, given Gupta's expertise in viral infections of the brain. While Blum's journal documents Gutierrez's fate, we remain somewhat unsure how Blum himself expired. We are relatively confident that the decomposed body in the infirmary described by the surveyors was Blum's. Unfortunately, digital images of the site obtained by the surveyors are badly distorted by electromagnetic interference. Computer reconstruction teams are working to create interpretable images, but at the current time we have only the debriefings from the remaining surveyors, and none has the cognitive capacity to offer reasonable explanations. The ANSD Working Group has elected to prepare this written briefing in order to maximize the work at tomorrow's meeting. Many of their annotations in the following notebooks will be rudimentary for the scientists on the panel, but it is important that all who see this material be able to participate as effectively as possible in the discussion. We must not lose hope. 1/3 of humanity remains. It is fair to note that tomorrow's meeting is among the most important gatherings in human history. If there are questions, do not hesitate to contact your facilitator. Good luck. Blum's handwritten notebook and the annotated comments follow.
November 16th, 2012. 6:15 a.m. On board the automated transport. I'm writing this because I need to believe that there is hope. What would be the point otherwise? Why would I go? I am Dr. Stanley Blum, an administrator at what's left of the Centers for Disease Control. I have a medical degree and a Ph.D. in neuroscience, but I haven't held a test tube in over 20 years. Before the plague, I was pushing paper around my desk in Atlanta. I haven't treated a patient since medical school. I didn't do a residency. I mostly tried to stay out of the way and enjoy my family. That was all before. If I lean over right now, I can see through the scratched window of the transport plane. The world is barren, hazy, apocalyptic. Only a fool would have hope. But Gutierrez is the smartest person I've ever met. If we're right, if she is onto something, then there is hope. And someone has to write about it. I've seen enough computer malfunctions over the last year to know better than to type this on my laptop. I will write everything down. I don't plan to survive this trip, but this notebook just might. And we just might find something new, something we can use, something we didn't understand or didn't even know before. Something that can cure us, something that can save us. In other words, we need to start over. Gutierrez's plan was to dissect each humanoid as if it were the first autopsy ever done by anyone. She was going to act as if we'd never seen them before. This was the only way, the only real hope that we would find anything useful, something we didn't already know, something we hadn't already tried. And it all has to be written down. I will record everything, everything I see, every theory we consider, every success, every failure. There might not be any scientists left when, or if anyone ever reads this. This might be all anyone will have to make sense of this mess. So it has to make sense to everyone, because everyone could be anyone. 8:00 a.m. Still on board the transport plane. Trying to organize my thoughts. Can't look at the textbooks and manuscripts anymore. My eyes hurt and I'm tired. Here's what we know so far. The natural history of the infection varies greatly, with time from contact to symptoms anywhere from 2 or 3 minutes to up to 7 days. Classifiers at the WHO have cataloged the natural progression of disease as follows. Stage 1. Onset of extreme hunger with coexisting fever and upper respiratory symptoms. Cognitive lucidity is maintained. Stage 1 lasts from 2 minutes to 3 days. Stage 2. Worsening fever with measured temperatures up to 105 degrees Fahrenheit. Cough worsens and cognitive decline begins with confusion and delirium. Hunger intensifies with a preference for large living organisms. Balance begins to suffer, with a wide staggered gait. Arms are often held in front to maintain posture. Names and people are usually still recognized, but with significant confusion. Stage 2 lasts from 1 to 24 hours. Stage 3. Ongoing fever, worsening delirium, and significant cognitive decline. Neurological effects are profound, with frequent falls and increased aggressive behavior. From observation, hunger appears to increase, Those subjects are no longer able to speak coherently and cannot accurately convey their feelings. Previous autopsies have demonstrated significant abnormalities in the gastrointestinal organs. Malabsorption and inability to process food predominate. Stage 3 lasts no more than 4 hours. Stage 4. Complete loss of human characteristics. Officially categorized as no longer human, NLH, by the UN and the WHO. These are the true zombies. That's what we called them when we first tried to describe their behavior, and the term, though crass, works. That's what they are. They have no capacity to recognize others as anything other than prey. They demonstrate profoundly hyper-aggressive behavior. Everything that's human is gone. The zombie bug is a virus related to seasonal flu, a strain of influenza. It is spherical and not segmental. This means that electron micrographs show that the virus is round, not rectangular. Spherical influenza viruses, the ones that are round in shape, are substantially more consistent with manufactured laboratory strains and seen much less commonly in nature. This is probably why Blanca thinks this bug might not be an accident. Someone may have made this thing. A bug this virulent, this tough, this scary, it wouldn't happen by accident. Unlike seasonal flu, this bug is unusually capable of flourishing outside the lungs. And just like the common cold, it is largely transmitted via respiratory droplets. We didn't know this for sure a year ago, but we suspected as much. Now we know. Every cough, every sneeze, every wheeze spews millions of virions, and each virion is a single infective virus, a zombie waiting to happen. There are prions in the body of the virus. The word is actually a combination of two words, protein and infection. They're called prions because no one quite understands what they are, other than infective proteins. But things that infect are alive, and proteins are not living organisms. This is one of the oldest mysteries of modern medicine. How can something that isn't alive infect and reproduce? Prions can cause spongiform changes to mammalian brains, and they're usually contracted by humans through direct oral ingestion. The changes are called spongiform because transformed brain tissue literally looks like a sponge, like mush. The prions in ANSD do not affect all brain regions equally. Also unusual in prion behavior. For unclear reasons, the amygdala, and especially the hypothalamus, are preserved. We do not have a good understanding of how the prions make their way to the central nervous system. How do they get from the lungs to the brain? Vaccine trials have involved both attenuated or harmless live viruses, as well as non-living antigen-based compounds, which are components of the virus itself. With the live virus, we kept altering it, changing its molecular structure in ways that ought to have made it only mildly pathogenic, but still infective enough to generate antibodies. This is routine for vaccine development. Both methods theoretically develop immunity in the host. Our trials failed, though. In fact, what we saw with the altered live virus was terrifying. The bug always reverted, always knew how to fix itself. It was as if it was expecting us to change it and was already programmed to change itself back. So, in most cases, there was temporary success, and in all cases, eventual failure. To date, no cure or vaccine exists. Although the molecular weights of identical influenza virions can vary enormously, there are continual reports that the measured weight of ANSD virions is greater than we can account for, given the suspected mass of this particular virus and the associated prions. Is there another protein or set of proteins present? Has another virus combined with this agent? November 16th, 2012, 2:47 p.m. The situation is so much worse than I expected. I tried to prepare myself, to imagine what I'd find when I landed. But I didn't expect this. I stepped off the plane an hour ago. No other planes have arrived. No communications, no contact. This is a nightmare. A bad dream. It smells like death here. Pittman is feverish, coughing, staggering. Gutierrez not much better. Gupta and 3 guards are already turned. Stage 4 disease. Zombies. They're gone. I counted 4 subjects in the holding facility. That's what's left of them. Communication with the UN is shaky, and I can't be sure that my transmissions are getting through. I mostly get error messages, and will continue writing by hand. Still no sign of Johnson or Martinez. This was the rest of my team. I can't do this without them. I'm here to facilitate. We need their expertise. We all left on separate transport units. We were all supposed to be here by now. Is it possible they didn't make it? There are lots of things out there that can bring a plane down. We knew this was a risk. Pittman tells me that there hasn't been a food delivery for the last 5 days. A few droids in the sky, but they didn't stop, didn't drop anything. The supplies we were bringing were loaded in Martinez's transport. We were so rushed, so desperate. The humanoids in the holding area are hungry. We need them functional for as long as possible. They'll need to feed. Water is scarce. Desalinization is continuing to function, but only intermittently. Food is mostly canned. We've tried feeding our food to the humanoids, but they don't seem to be interested. The stench of dead fish is pervasive. The humanoids will eat the occasional live fish that wash ashore. I guess that's how hungry they are. Usually they prefer human tissue. Pittman and Gutierrez are infected, probably dying. They're able to work at most 3 to 4 hours a day. Pittman had 2 seizures yesterday. Most of their scientific notes are not intelligible, at least not to me. I've used the satellite internet to transmit what I could back to base for assistance, but no response so far. I'm not even sure that transmissions are getting through. It is clear that they haven't started any autopsies yet. Gutierrez wants me to perform the autopsies. She and Pittman are too sick, too unreliable. There really aren't any other options, but the task seems almost impossible. I haven't done research in over 2 decades. This isn't why I'm here. Gutierrez still suspects an additional pathogen. She suspects that our vaccines have failed because an additional bug, probably a virus, has combined with the ANSD bug. We've always been good at making vaccines for influenza. But if this bug has something more, something even more than the prions, then we're missing it and we're not vaccinating against it. If there is something more and we find it, we could figure out how to stop it. It's a good hypothesis, but the search will take time. Gutierrez and Pittman don't have that kind of time. Pretty soon I won't either. Until my arrival, they worried that without Gupta they lacked the manpower to manage the living dissections. Now that I'm here, they want me to lead the effort. And then there's the message. I know Gutierrez sent it. It sounded like she was already onto something, like she knew something new. I asked her about it, even played it for her on the computer speakers. Status, gent. Hype, new. Diff, virus. Vaccine, bull. I played it 3 times, but she had no recollection. Said she never sent it. Is she that far gone? Is she delirious? Will she remember later? Can I trust her judgment? I asked her if she had any new ideas, and she smiled, but told me she was too tired to talk. I'm not certain that I can trust what she says. She falls asleep at her desk, often spontaneously. I have to tease out her brilliance from what looks like delirium, and Pittman isn't much help with all this. But his drawings are invaluable. His sketches of the laboratory and of all the facilities on the island have been more helpful than any of the photographs they showed me back at the UN. I've included his sketch of the laboratory to orient whoever reads this. So much has changed since the original construction. I also asked him to draw the stages of the disease when I arrived, so we could have a working record.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?